Hey guys, tonight we invite you to drift away on a calm and soothing journey across the ocean with Aurora's Dream. Settle comfortably into your bed, dim the lights, and let your body fully relax. Close your eyes, take slow, deep breaths, and feel all your worries gently melt away. Tonight's story will take you aboard an old ship, through mysterious islands, gentle waves, and ghostly sailors, all in a completely relaxing and peaceful atmosphere to help you drift into a deep, restful sleep. Now let's begin the story. The harbor was quiet that night. Not the kind of quiet that makes you uneasy, but the kind that feels like a blanket, soft, steady, and endless. The water moved slowly, tapping against the wooden docks, as if humming a lullaby that only the sea could sing. An old ship rested there, tied loosely to the pier. Its name was painted in faded gold letters across the side, Aurora's Dream. Years ago, this vessel had crossed oceans and weathered storms, carrying merchants, sailors, and dreamers alike. Now, it stood still, almost forgotten, as if waiting for someone to listen to its stories. The air was cool, salt mixed with the faint smell of old wood and tar. The sails, though worn and pale, swayed gently in the night breeze, whispering like tired curtains in an open window. Above, the sky stretched endlessly, a dark ocean filled with stars. That was the night Adrian Cole arrived. He had traveled far, leaving behind the noise of the city and the weight of restless days. Life had been too loud, too fast. What he wanted now was silence, a journey into the unknown, something that would help him breathe again. When Adrian first stepped onto the dock, he stopped to take it all in. The sound of the tide, the shimmering silver of the moon, the creaking wood under his boots. Everything felt slower here, calmer, like the world itself was exhaling. He approached the ship. Aurora's Dream seemed alive, as though it had been waiting as the vessel shifted slightly, the deck boards giving a soft knock with each small wave. Adrian placed his hand on the railing. The wood was rough, cool, and steady. For a moment, he thought he felt the ship breathe. He climbed aboard. His footsteps echoed. Thunk, 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 until they were swallowed by the vast emptiness of the deck. No sailors, no captain, no voices. Just Adrian in the night. Yet he didn't feel alone. The moon poured silver light across the sails, stretching long shadows across the planks. The ship rocked gently, and Adrian's heartbeat slowed. He leaned against the railing, staring at the horizon. In the distance, the shore's lights shimmered like tiny fireflies, but they were fading fast. A low groan rumbled through the ship as if the wood itself remembered every voyage, every storm, every whisper of wind it had ever known. Adrian took a deep breath. The salt in the air clung to his tongue, grounding him in the present moment. For the first time in a long while, he felt still. Then it happened. The ropes loosened on their own, slipping free into the water. The sails unfurled with a soft rush, catching the night breeze. Aurora's Dream moved, slowly, gently, but with purpose. The dock slid away, and the harbor shrank behind him. Adrian didn't resist. He only watched, his chest filling with a strange mix of calm and wonder. The ship carried him forward as though it knew where he needed to go, even if he didn't. The sea opened wide, an endless stretch of dark blue touched by moonlight. The waves whispered against the hull, steady and rhythmic, like a heartbeat guiding him towards sleep. Above, the stars looked close enough to touch, each one glimmering with secrets. Adrian stretched out on the deck. The wood was firm but comforting beneath his back. He folded his arms behind his head and stared upward. He felt smaller than he ever had, yet somehow safe, as though the sky itself was watching. The noise, the hurry, the endless demands. All that remained was the sea, the ship, and the quiet. His eyelids grew heavy. The sound of the waves became softer, slower, more like a lullaby than a force of nature. The sails rustled, the wood creaked, and together they formed a kind of music, a song only a weary traveler could understand. Aurora's dream moved farther and farther into the night. Adrian's thoughts faded, drifting like clouds. And soon, he slept, peacefully, deeply, cradled by the ocean. The first light of dawn touched the sea with a soft glow. Aurora's dream drifted steadily, its sails stretched like the wings of a sleeping bird. The ocean no longer felt endless black. It had turned into shades of pale blue and silver, calm and alive. Adrian stirred awake. The deck was cool beneath him, carrying the faint smell of salt and oak. His eyes blinked open to a sky painted with early light. For a moment, he wasn't sure where he was. The quietness, the rocking beneath him, the distant cries of gulls. This was nothing like the crowded city he had left behind. He sat up slowly, rubbing the sleep from his face. His body felt lighter, as if the ship had carried away more than just distance in the night. It had taken pieces of worry, of weight, and left behind space for something new. The sea rolled gently, each wave folding into the next with patient rhythm. He leaned over the railing, watching the water dance. The waves didn't crash here. They whispered, brushed, and sighed. The wood beneath his feet hummed with each shift, the ship breathing with the tide. Adrian thought about how old this ship must be. Every plank had cracks and marks, every nail a story. When he ran his hand along the railing, the texture told him of storms weathered, of hands before his that had clutched this very wood while staring at the same endless sea. It was strange. Though the ship was empty, Adrian felt far from the mast, the creak, the flutter of the sails. These were voices. The Aurora's dream was speaking in its own language, a language of wood and waves. He closed his eyes, listening. The sounds weren't random. The wood knocked softly when the waves leaned against it. The sails rustled like pages of a book, as if turning slowly in the breeze. Even the ropes shifted, giving low sighs. Together, it became a conversation. Adrian smiled. Maybe the ship was alive, he thought. Maybe it has been waiting to tell its stories to someone willing to listen. Hours passed gently. He wandered the deck, exploring. At the stern, he found a carved emblem, an old compass etched into the wood. Its edges were worn, smooth by time, but still clear. He traced it with his fingers. A compass pointing to nowhere, or perhaps pointing everywhere. The horizon was wide open. Adrian felt a pull in his chest, not fear, but curiosity. He had no idea where the ship was heading, but he realized he didn't need to. The not knowing was part of the peace. By noon, the sun had risen higher, warming the deck. Adrian stretched out on a coil of rope, his body swaying gently with the motion of the vessel. The warmth touched his skin. The smell of the sea filled his lungs, and once again he felt that slow, calming weight of drowsiness. The wood creaked beneath him. The waves hummed. Together, they sang a lullaby that belonged only to the ocean. Adrian drifted into sleep again, this time with no resistance. Aurora's dream carried on, steady and patient, whispering stories in every ripple of water, every groan of timber, every sigh of wind. The days at sea passed like long, unbroken breaths. Aurora's dream carried Adrian farther from the world he knew, farther into a place where time itself seemed to soften. Each morning arrived gently, Each evening settled quietly, and the ocean stretched on without end. Adrian spent his hours listening. He had learned that the ship spoke like voices telling stories of storms long past. The sails whispered when the wind brushed through them. Even the water had a language. The hush of calm swells, the low growl of deeper tides, the occasional slap of a restless wave. At first, Adrian thought it was just his imagination, but as the days drifted by, he felt it more and more. The ship was alive, the sea was alive, and they were speaking directly to him. One evening, he stood at the bow as the sun slipped into the horizon. The sky blazed with colors, fiery orange melting into deep violet. The sea caught the reflection, turning into a mirror of light and shadow. For a long while, Adrian said nothing. He simply breathed, his chest rising and falling in rhythm with the swells. Then, in the quiet, he heard it again. A whisper. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the wood. It was something softer, like a voice carried from far away. Words he couldn't quite catch, but enough to make his skin prickle. He leaned closer, gripping the railing. The sound grew clearer, though still faint, like a memory trying to be remembered. Adrian closed his eyes and let the whisper wash over him. He didn't need to understand the words. The tone itself was enough. It was gentle, welcoming, almost like someone saying, "You're not alone out here." His heart eased. Whatever this voice was, it didn't frighten him. It soothed him. Night fell, stars blooming in the sky one by one. Aurora's dream moved steadily forward, the sails glowing faintly in moonlight. Adrian lay back on the deck again, staring upward. The whisper came and went, fading into the sound of waves, returning like the tide itself. He thought of his old life, the noise of the city, the endless race, the exhaustion that clung to him every day. Out here, none of that existed. Out here, even the silence had something to say. Adrian drifted towards sleep, and as his eyes closed, he thought he saw movement at the horizon. Shapes, not birds, but something else. Something waiting. But the sea rocked him gently, pulling him into dreams before he could wonder more. Aurora's dream sailed on, carrying him toward mysteries the horizon refused to reveal too soon. The ocean has a way of holding memories. Every ripple seemed to carry something old, every wave a fragment of a story that refused to disappear. Out here, far from land, Adrian began to feel it, the weight of time beneath the surface. Aurora's dream moved gently, its wooden body groaning like an elder telling tales too ancient for words. The sails puffed and relaxed with the steady breeze, their rhythm almost like breathing. Adrian often walked the deck in silence, hand brushing along the railing, listening as if the wood itself might speak. One morning, after a night of restless dreams, he awoke to something unusual. The sea was calm, perfectly calm, so still it looked like glass. The sky above was pale blue, scattered with thin white clouds, and the water mirrored it so clearly that Adrian felt like the ship was floating between two heavens. He leaned over the edge, staring down into the depths. For the first time, he saw shapes moving far below, slow, vast, almost dreamlike. They weren't fish. They weren't whales. They were something else, something that moved with a grace too deliberate to belong to ordinary creatures. The sight pulled him in. He held his breath, waiting. The water shifted, and suddenly, it wasn't just shapes anymore. It was scenes. Adrian blinked hard, unsure if he was still dreaming. But the vision stayed. He saw flashes of sailors hauling ropes, their voices echoing across time. He saw storms, lightning tearing the sky apart, while this same ship fought to stay afloat. He saw laughter too, faces of travelers leaning against the railing, pointing at stars, singing songs to the rhythm of the waves. The sea remembered. Adrian stumbled back from the railing to the wood of the ship. It was warm beneath his palm, almost pulsing. He whispered softly, "What are you showing me?" The answer came not in words, but in sound. A long groan of timber, a shift in the sails, a single ripple across the mirror-like sea. Adrian exhaled, shoulders relaxing. This wasn't a warning. It wasn't meant to frighten him. The ocean was sharing itself, its memory, its endless story. And somehow, Aurora's dream was the vessel chosen to carry those memories forward. As the day went on, the visions faded, but the feeling remained. Every creak of the deck, every splash against the hull seemed charged with history. Adrian realized he was part of that story now. Each step he took on this ship was being folded into the memory of the sea itself. That night, as stars returned, Adrian sat near the stern, his back against a coil of rope. He stared at the horizon where sky and water melted together. He whispered, almost to himself, "I wonder what you'll remember of me." Aurora's dream swayed gently, the waves answering with soft, patient voices. And under the vast, endless night, Adrian felt both very small and deeply connected. The sea remembered, and now so did he. The sea had its rhythm now, soft, steady, unchanging. Aurora's dream moved as if it had all the time in the world, gliding across waters that stretched beyond sight. For days, Adrian had settled into the silence, letting the ocean lull him into peace. But on the fifth night, something changed. He woke suddenly. The stars were overhead, the deck cool beneath him. The air was calm, the sea smooth, yet Adrian's heartbeat was quick. He couldn't explain why. Something had stirred him from sleep, though no sound had broken the silence. He sat up, eyes scanning the deck. Nothing, just the sails swaying gently, ropes shifting in the breeze. The ship was empty, as always, and yet it didn't feel empty. Adrian rose slowly, barefoot steps beneath soft against each sound echoing in the stillness. He walked toward the bow, then stopped. There was again that feeling, the sense that he wasn't alone. "Hello." His voice was quiet, almost hesitant. It disappeared into the night air, swallowed by the sea. No answer came, but when he turned, he thought he saw movement at the stern. A shadow, faint and fleeting. Not a trick of moonlight, something real. His chest tightened. Yet it wasn't fear that filled him. It was curiosity. Adrian stepped carefully toward the stern. The lantern hanging near the railing flickered, as if disturbed by more than the wind. He paused, listening. The ocean's lullaby continued, but beneath it, faintly, came the sound of footsteps. Not his own. They were light, almost delicate, echoing softly across the deck. He turned quickly, but again, nothing. Only ropes, wood, and moonlight. Adrian exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe I've been at sea too long," he whispered to himself. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling. Someone, or something, was aboard. That night, when he finally lay back down, the sensation lingered. He closed his eyes, listening closely. The waves brushed against the hull. The sails sighed overhead. And faintly, almost too faintly to notice, there was the sound of breathing. Not his own. Adrian didn't open his eyes. Instead, he let the rhythm of the ship carry him back towards sleep. The presence didn't feel hostile. If anything, it felt familiar, comforting even. Aurora's dream sailed on, its wooden body groaning softly. Somewhere in the night, An unseen passenger moved quietly across the deck, as though the ship had decided Adrian would not travel alone. And for the first time in his life, Adrian felt a strange truth settle inside him. Solitude and companionship could exist together, hidden in the same silence. The days that followed were different. Aurora's dream still drifted across calm and softening with the wind, its wood humming with patient memory. But now, Adrian no longer felt like the only soul aboard. The unseen passenger lingered. Sometimes it was footsteps, soft taps along the planks when Adrian lay still. Sometimes it was the creak of the railing, as though someone leaned against it, gazing at the horizon beside him. And sometimes, in the moments between waking and sleep, Adrian thought he heard breathing close to his own. He told himself it was imagination, but deep down he knew it wasn't. One evening, as the sun sank low, painting the water with streaks of gold and crimson, Adrian stood near the bow. His hand rested on the railing, his gaze lost in the fading light. The sea was calm, the kind of calm that made the world feel endless. And then he heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing, a voice. It was faint, so faint that he almost dismissed it as wind in the sails. But the tone was clear, soft, and undeniably human. Adrian, he froze. The name had been spoken. His name. His throat tightened. Slowly, he turned, scanning the deck. No one stood there. The lantern at the stern flickered, shadows shifting across the planks. He whispered, "Who's there?" The silence answered first. Then, after a pause, the voice returned, gentle, almost like a memory given shape. "You're not alone." Adrian's chest rose sharply. The words didn't frighten him. Instead, they brought a strange comfort, like someone had placed a hand on his shoulder. Warm, familiar. He swallowed hard. "Who are you?" The sails rustled. The wood groaned. And then, silence again. Adrian stayed still for a long time, the sea stretching endlessly in every direction. The voice hadn't returned, but the feeling remained, stronger than before. He wasn't alone. He had never been alone. That night, as stars filled the sky, Adrian lay awake listening. The waves tapped softly against the hull. The ropes swayed. The air smelled of salt and pine, like a thread of music too quiet to follow, was the voice. Not speaking now, just humming. A low, steady tune, as though the unseen passenger was singing him to sleep. Adrian closed his eyes. His breath slowed. The melody drifted around him like a lullaby carried on the tide. And when he finally surrendered to sleep, he dreamed not of the city he left behind, but of the sea, endless, alive, and waiting. Aurora's dream sailed on, carrying both Adrian and the voice through waters that remembered everything. Adrian awoke before dawn. The sky was still dark, scattered with stars that clung stubbornly to the horizon. The ocean was silent, except for the rhythmic wash of waves against the hull. For a moment, he wondered if the voice he had heard was only a dream. But then, there was again, a whisper, low and steady, almost woven into the sound of the sea. Adrian, he sat up quickly, his pulse rising. His eyes searched the deck. The lanterns had burned low, casting only faint halos of light. The sails shifted lazily above, like tired wings. "Show yourself," he said, his voice steady but his heart not. A pause. Then, from near the stern, the faint outline of a figure began to shimmer. At first it looked like smoke, curling and twisting in the night air. Then it grew clearer, tall with shoulders stooped slightly as though weighed by years. The figure did not walk, but drifted forward. Its features flickered like candlelight. impossible to hold steady in Adrian's gaze. But the voice was firm, calm, and strangely kind. "You're sailing the waters I once knew," it said. "The ship remembers me, and now it remembers you." Adrian swallowed. His palms were damp against the wood. "Who are you?" The figure tilted its head, almost smiling. "A traveler, as you are. My name is Elias." The name hung in the air like a chord on a harp, vibrating softly. Elias. Adrian repeated it in his mind. A sailor, a ghost. Something in the voice felt achingly familiar, as though he had heard it long ago, perhaps in childhood stories whispered by a fire. "Why are you here?" Adrian asked. The figure's eyes, pale like fog touched by moonlight, rested on him. "Because no journey is ever taken alone. The sea keeps its stories, and when you stepped aboard Aurora's dream, you became part of mine." Adrian's breath caught. He should have been afraid, yet he wasn't. The fear was gone, replaced by a strange peace. The ghostly sailor wasn't here to haunt him. He was here to guide him. Elias moved closer, the boards beneath him not creaking, as though the ship didn't notice his weight. "You seek rest. You seek answers. Both can be found here if you listen. The ocean remembers more than men dare to believe." The horizon brightened slowly, a band of silver spilling across the water. Dawn was near. The figure began to fade with the night, its form dissolving into mist. Adrian reached forward. "Wait," but Elias only gave a nod, a promise of return. His voice drifted one last time, like the tide pulling away from shore. "We will speak again when the stars are high." And then he was gone. Adrian stood alone on the deck, his heart steady now, his soul quiet. For the first time since he left the city, he didn't feel lost. He felt chosen. The sea was not empty. The ship was not silent. And the journey had only just begun. The morning after his encounter with Elias, Adrian moved through the ship in silence. The ocean was wide and forgiving, the kind of calm that stretched for miles without a single crest of foam. He walked the deck barefoot, listening to the wood beneath him, wondering how many others had stood where he stood, listening, waiting, hoping. That night, when the stars rose high above the sails, Adrian returned to the bow and leaned into the salt air. He didn't call out. He didn't need to. The voice returned on its own. "You're listening now," near the mast, folding itself into the figure Adrian had seen before. His outline was clearer this time, as though memory itself had grown stronger. His hair moved in a breeze that wasn't there, and his clothes seemed sewn from shadow and starlight. Adrian asked softly, "Who were you before all this?" The figure gazed toward the horizon. His voice was low, like the rumble of waves against cliffs. "I was a sailor, born in a port town where ships were carved by hand and the smell of pine tar filled the streets. My first voyage was when I was 15, too young to know fear, too eager to taste freedom." He paused, as though the memory pressed heavy against him. Then he continued, "I sailed for years, through storms that split the sky, across waters so still they mirrored the stars. I thought I was chasing trade, chasing wealth, but I was chasing something else, something I could never name." Adrian listened, each word sinking into him like rain into dry earth. He imagined Elias young, standing tall on the deck of a ship not unlike Aurora's dream, his eyes set on horizons that promised more than they ever gave. Elias turned then, his gaze resting on Adrian. "Have you ever felt it? The pull of something greater, even when you don't know what it is?" Adrian nodded slowly. "That's why I left the city." The ghost smiled faintly, the expression bittersweet. "Then you understand. The sea is not only water, it is memory. It holds every voice, every journey, every hope left unfinished. We are drawn to it not for riches, but for answers. The ship groaned as though agreeing, its sails whispering overhead. The stars seemed closer now, brighter, as if leaning down to listen. Adrian's heart beat steady. He felt like a child again, being told a bedtime story. But this one was alive, whispered directly into his soul. "Will you tell me more?" Adrian asked. Elias nodded. "Yes, but not all at once. Stories must come like waves, never forced. One after another. Tonight, I will give you only the beginning." He lifted a hand, and the mist around him swirled like ink dropped into water. Shapes formed, shadows of ships, outlines of sailors, storms painted in silver light. Adrian watched as though the sea itself was unrolling memory before his eyes. And then, with a soft sigh, Elias faded back into the dark. "Rest now," the voice lingered. "The sea has many more stories to tell." Adrian leaned back, eyes tracing the sky, the ship rocking him gently. His breath slowed, his mind softened. He felt as if the ocean itself had tucked him in, its lullaby carrying him into sleep. Aurora's dream drifted on, a cradle of wood and wind, carrying not just a man, but the memory of all who had sailed before. The night was clear. Stars shimmered above like lanterns hung by invisible hands, and Aurora's dream drifted forward as though guided by their light. Adrian sat cross-legged near the mast, waiting, not with impatience, but with the quiet expectation of someone about to hear a story that had waited centuries to be told. The mist thickened again. Elias returned. His form was sharper now, more solid than the nights before. His eyes glowed faintly, not with menace, but with memory. "Tonight," Elias said, his voice steady as the tide, "I will give you my first tale. A voyage that changed me, though I did not know it then." Adrian leaned forward, his breath slow, his heart calm. Elias lifted a hand, and the air shimmered. The sea itself seemed to bend, showing visions like ripples of light. "I was no older than you," Elias began, "when I first crossed the Atlantic. Our ship was called the Celestine. She was smaller than Aurora's dream, but faster, with sails that caught the wind like wings. We left from Boston, bound for Lisbon. The crew was rough, men hardened by storms, their laughter sharp as knives. I was the youngest, the quietest, but my eyes never left the horizon, forming shapes, figures of sailors pulling ropes, a ship cutting through waves, gulls crying overhead. One night, midway across, the wind died. The sea became a mirror. For 3 days, not a breath stirred. The men grew restless. Food was fine, water was fine, but still silence eats at a sailor more than hunger. The captain paced, muttering of ill omens. And then, Elias's voice lowered, deep as the ocean floor. We heard singing. Adrian shivered, though the night was warm. At first, we thought it was one of us. But the voices came from the water, dozens of them, soft, lilting, beautiful, the kind of song that makes your chest ache with longing. The men leaned over the rails, their faces pale in the starlight. I was among them, and there, just below the surface, I saw shapes. Not fish, not men, something in between. Their eyes were bright as pearls, their hair drifting like seaweed. The mist shimmered, forming the faint outline of figures in the water, reaching upward. Sirens, Elias whispered. That's what we called them. But they were not monsters. Their song wasn't cruel. It was gentle, almost like they were trying to ease our fear. For a moment, I wanted nothing more than to join them, to let the sea swallow me whole. Adrian's breath caught. Did anyone? Elias's gaze grew heavy. One man leapt, a deckhand named Samuel. He was laughing as he went overboard, his arms wide as though falling into the arms of a lover. The water closed over him, and the voices grew louder, sweeter. "We threw ropes," called his name, but Samuel never returned. The song ended as suddenly as it had begun, and the sea returned to silence. By dawn, the wind returned, and we sailed on. The captain forbade us from ever speaking of it again. The ghost's eyes met Adrian's. But I have never forgotten, not the sound of their song, nor the look of peace on Samuel's face as he vanished beneath the waves. The sea does not give back what it takes. The ship creaked softly, the ropes swaying overhead. Adrian felt his chest tighten, but not with fear. It was awe. The story felt alive, as if the tide itself carried Samuel's song still. Elias placed a hand, ghostly but steady, on the railing. "Remember this, the ocean is not cruel, not kind. It simply is. Those who sail must learn to listen, not with ears, but with the soul." And as dawn's first light touched the horizon, Elias faded once more into mist, his tale lingering like a lullaby caught in the air. Adrian leaned back against the mast, closing his eyes. The ship rocked gently, the stars dimming above. And somewhere in the rhythm of the waves, he almost thought he heard it too. A song, faint and beautiful, rising from the deep. The following night, the ocean was restless. Aurora's dream rolled gently on the waves, her timbers creaking, her sails pulling like tired lungs against the breeze. Adrian sat on the deck, waiting. The memory of Samuel and the sirens lingered in his mind, a haunting song that would not leave. The mist thickened once more, curling along the rails. Elias appeared, his figure sharper than before, his presence stronger, as if each story gave him weight. "Tonight," Elias said softly, "I will tell you of the storm. Not just any storm, but one that seemed to breathe." Adrian pulled his knees close, listening. It began in silence, Elias said, his eyes far away. The kind of silence sailors dread. No wind, no gulls, the sky too still. We knew it was coming before it showed itself. The mist darkened, shaping itself into black clouds, towering above the sea. By the second night, the sky was a wall of thunder. Lightning cut across the horizon like silver knives, and the air itself seemed alive. When it struck, the ship screamed. The mast groaned, sails tore, and men shouted prayers into the wind. Adrian felt the ship beneath him creak in sympathy, as though Aurora's dream, Elias continued, lowering his voice, was the rhythm. The storm had a pulse. The waves rose and fell like the beating of a heart. The thunder rolled in steady patterns, almost like breathing. It was as if the storm itself was alive, watching us, testing us. The mist curled into shapes, waves towering higher than the masts, lightning splitting the sea. Adrian could almost feel the spray on his skin, though the night around him remained calm. Many men broke that night, Elias said, his face heavy with memory. Some clung to the deck and wept. Some cursed the heavens. One man laughed, his mind gone from fear. And I listened. Beneath the roar, beneath the fury, there was something else. A calm, a voice. Adrian's breath caught. A voice. Elias nodded. Yes. At the center of the storm, when the winds pulled us into the eye, everything stilled. The clouds circled above like a crown of shadow, but inside, silence. And in that silence, I heard it. Not words, but presence. As though the sea itself was reminding me. Storms pass, but the ocean remains. His voice softened, becoming almost a whisper. That night, I understood. Fear is not the enemy. The true enemy is forgetting that all storms end. The sea teaches us to endure, to bend, to bow, but never to break. The ghostly sailor placed his hand on the railing. The mist around him calmed, thinning until he was only a faint shimmer in the lantern glow. Elias's voice drifted like the tide. "Remember this, Adrian. Life will give you storms that breathe. Do not fear their fury. Listen for the calm inside them." And with that, he faded once again, leaving Adrian alone beneath the stars. But Adrian did not feel fear. He felt wonder. He lay back against the deck, the wood warm beneath him, the sky vast above. His eyelids grew heavy, and as sleep took him, he dreamed not of chaos, but of silence. The heart of the storm, steady and alive. The night after the storm, the ocean floated as though the world itself had exhaled, her timbers sighing softly with relief. Adrian sat near the stern, staring at the horizon where the last colors of sunset melted into the dark blue of night. The mist swirled, and Elias appeared again. His presence was calm, familiar, like an old friend returning to tell a tale long remembered. "Tonight," Elias said, "I will tell you about friendship at sea, a bond forged in wind, waves, and shared silence." Adrian leaned forward, attentive. "I was not alone on the Celestine," Elias began. "Not in spirit, not in body. There was a sailor named Jonathan, quiet, steady, and taller than anyone else on board. The first time I saw him, I thought him unremarkable, but the sea has a way of showing you what matters." The mist around Elias shifted, forming two figures, one small, one tall, standing on a deck under moonlight. Jonathan and I were thrown together by necessity. A storm, stronger than any before, had torn the sails, broken the ropes, and left us struggling for hours. We had to depend on each other, trust each other, not just with skill, but with life itself. Elias's voice softened, almost reverent. I learned that night that friendship is not always in laughter or talk. Sometimes it is simply knowing someone else is there, steady as the tide, when the world threatens to undo you. Adrian felt the truth of the words, as if he could feel the bond, warm and quiet, stretching across the deck, reaching out through time. "Jonathan saved me once," Elias continued, "and I saved him, not because we were heroes, but because that is what sailors do for one another. We do not abandon. We do not falter. The ocean tests you, but also rewards loyalty and courage." The mist swirled again, showing glimpses of two sailors working together, hands gripping ropes, eyes set on the horizon, hearts steady. And even after our voyages ended, after we left ports and cities behind, we could no longer see each other. Long after time tried to pull us apart, we could hear the memory of one another in the waves. Elias looked at Adrian with faint, glowing eyes. Friendship is like the ocean. It can be vast, deep, sometimes dangerous, but carries you, steadies you, teaches you what truly matters. The ghostly figure reached toward the horizon, then slowly dissolved into the mist, leaving Adrian alone under the starlit sky. Aurora's dream rocked gently, her timbers humming a lullaby of waves and friendship. Adrian closed his eyes, imagining Jonathan and Elias, their hands steady on ropes, their hearts tied together by the memory of storms survived and trust earned. And as sleep came, he felt the calm of knowing that bonds, like the sea, can endure beyond time and distance. The horizon changed subtly as dawn broke. Aurora's dream moved with a quiet purpose, her sails catching the soft morning light. The sea shimmered, almost silver, as if guiding the ship toward a secret it had kept for centuries. Adrian leaned on the railing, eyes half closed. He could feel it, the pull of something unseen, something calling. The ocean whispered around him, a gentle hum beneath the rocking of the ship. And then he saw it, a shape rising above the mist far ahead. Not a shadow, not a cloud, but the faint outline of land. An island, he whispered, his voice barely carrying over the gentle waves. The mist thickened, swirling around the distant shore. Trees rose like dark spires, their tops hidden in clouds. The sand glimmered faintly, white as though dusted with silver light. The island was alive, not with people, but with promise. As the ship drew closer, the air changed. The smell of salt deepened, mingling with the scent of flowers and wet earth. Adrian could hear the distant murmur of water flowing, streams, waterfalls, or perhaps something older. The island seemed to breathe, a quiet rhythm that matched his own as Elias appeared, pale and solid, his eyes reflecting the rising sun. "This island waits," Elias said softly. "It is not on any map, and no sailor alive could name it. It remembers every ship that ever approached, every traveler who sought rest, or peace, or answers. The sea guides those who need it here." Adrian felt a shiver, not of fear, but of awe. "Why me?" he asked. Elias smiled faintly, a ghost of warmth in his spectral face. "Because you listen, because you remember. The ocean chooses not by skill, nor by courage, but by heart, and you carry one willing to hear its secrets." The ship glided closer. Adrian could see more details now. Jagged cliffs lined the shore, their bases kissed by waves. Trees leaned over the sand, leaves whispering in a wind that seemed only to exist for this place. In the distance, a faint light flickered, not from fire, but as though the island itself was alive. Adrian leaned forward, entranced. The island seemed to promise a story, a memory waiting to unfold. Elias's voice came again, soft and fading. "Every island, every rock, every current holds memory, and some memories are old enough to dream. This place is one of them." Aurora's dream drifted closer to the shore, the mist curling around her like protective arms. Adrian felt the wood beneath his hands pulse softly. The ship, he realized, knew where it was going. The sea, the ship, and Elias had brought him here, not by chance but by design. As the sun rose higher, spilling gold across waves and sand, Adrian felt his chest lighten. He was standing on the edge of a story older than himself, a place half real, half dream, waiting to reveal what the ocean remembered. He exhaled slowly, letting the rhythm of the ship, the sea, and the island itself lull him into calm. Aurora's dream anchored gently just beyond the shore, its hull rocking softly. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, Adrian felt that the ocean's memory